everyone. This is Dr. Cross, and we are actually coming to our final full week of class. Next week, we have a half a week before going into the Thanksgiving holiday, and I will upload a closing video for next week. The final official end of class is noon on Wednesday of next week. But this video is to talk a little bit about feedback from the community assessment as promised. First thing I want to say is I love that assignment. I really enjoy watching student videos. It's a way that I get a chance to see you actually practicing the skills that you're learning in the course. Those important generalist practice skills. Um, the positives about most of the videos is they were engaging. They provided videos. They provided um, good pictures of the area, and so I was able to really see the area. And so it's wonderful when you can do a community assessment and hoist people away to the actual community, and the pictures made it engaging. And you can tell that many of you were excited to be in the community doing the assessment. um, that's a good thing. If you didn't load your PowerPoint with pictures and videos, that's something you want to correct in the future. The whole point of a PowerPoint presentation is it allows you more options than writing a paper. It's not in text or black ink on white paper. You literally have color, you have designs, you have pictures. You can do recordings, you can use your phone. The sky is the limit in options. So whenever you're giving a presentation, make sure that it doesn't look like a paper. Make sure that it's engaging. Make sure that you're using all the functionality to really bring your presentation alive. Um, be mindful of time frames. I know I gave students a little bit more time to do this video because um, some people struggle with technology, and so that way, if they're fumbling with keys and uploading and they need more time, it was permitted. Usually students have a lot less time to do the community assessment, but I wanted to make sure students had a little bit more time. But make sure you strictly adhere to timelines, because when you give professional presentation or presentations for your employer or for maybe a professional conference, you're going to be held strictly to that time. You will be stopped at the time, whether you're complete or not. And so you want to make sure you convey your full message. So be mindful of the time. But you don't want it to be too long, and of course you don't want it to be too short. You want to make sure you thoroughly cover the key areas so that your point is conveyed as well. So you don't want them to be too short as well. This is an art form. This is something you'll develop in practice. So one of the skills of this assignment is making sure that you can do what is required of the assignment, but it's also teaching you other type of core social work, generalist social work skills, communication, presentation. How are you taking large amounts of information and condensing it to key points and key takeaways? Those were skills that you were supposed to learn with this. And many of you did a wonderful job of that. Making sure that when you're doing your observations, you're posting and showing pictures of things that you do see, but also observations are things that you do not see. So we need to hear a lot about what is not in the community. What do you think is lacking? So strengths and needs. So that goes with observations, strengths of those observations and that community and needs. Making sure that you do a good composition of the identity of that makeup. Think about if you were doing an individual assessment with me. You notice that I'm an African American woman. I'm a middle-aged African American woman. You notice that my hair is natural. You may notice different things about me that will characteristic wise that will help inform your assessment of me and whatever problems I may present with if I was a client. Same thing of the observation. What is the character of the community? What do you see? This talks about racial composition. This talks about ethnic composition. Languages spoken, predominant language spoken, and sometimes seeing the type of buildings and structures available helps you get a sense of what that community is about. Some of you talked about it, but think about that when you're doing your assessment. Not just what you can see, what you can't see. And in a micro assessment, we're talking about verbals and nonverbals. It will be the equivalent. What do you see about that community, and what's underground? What can't you see but you think may be brewing underground with that community? What are some of the issues? Also think about when you're doing your presentation, the time of day. I noticed that some of you did speak that they were strategic in picking times of day where they can see the character of the community. But if you're doing videos and taking pictures and it's too dark outside, the quality we can't see that well in the dark using a phone. So be mindful of that. You know, you want to present. You may want to use pictures and videos that are in the daylight so that the visuals and the optics on them are better and clear, so we can actually see what houses look like. We can see what buildings look like. We can see the street. We can see more detail of the community. But maybe going or talking about it in to really see the characters if you need to in the community during different times, and being strategic about that is fine. But as far as pictures, you want to make sure you do it where we can actually see. Other things to be mindful of, and that's just related to the observations. You want to make sure that they're rich. They're rich observations. So you're covering as much as of what you can see in that neighborhood to get a sense of the type of neighborhood it is. Now we're going to the data, right? So you're starting off with the observations, and now you're letting those observations, what you're able to see and not see, guide you to your information sources. Many of you use the census information, census website. That's perfectly fine about getting a geographical statistical makeup of a community, right? But that doesn't cover all the things that you see with your observations. So if you see substance use, what is the data source that you will go to gather information on substance use in a community? You know, what would you be looking for? What type of data? And that's the critical piece of the assessment. I see this. Where do I need to go to get statistical information? And that you would not get from a census. If you see dilapidated buildings, if you see a lot of abandoned buildings, the census information is not going to give you a figure on that. Maybe unemployment data might give you a sense of that, maybe. But what happened to that community in terms of the assessment? And then what is the data source you would need to check out for that? And so again, the observations are aligning and informing your data sources. And again, there's nothing wrong with starting off at the Census Bureau to gather additional identity. That can confirm what you visually saw about the people, their racial, ethnic makeup, but the Census Bureau will not give you the data on the problems of the community. Okay, and so be mindful of that. Or think about if you can't find it in a data source, maybe then your key informant needs to be able to speak to those problems. So think of homelessness, think of substance use, think of crime. Where would you go to find crime statistics if you think crime is large? Mental health. If you think there's a lot of mental health facilities and mental health, and you think there's a big problem with mental health, opioid addiction, what are the data sources that you would go to confirm what it is you see with your observations? So again, many students ran right to Census Bureau because it was an option. But I want you to think broadly. When you're thinking of an assessment, you're peeling away layers of the issues, and you're going to that data source. So don't go to the data source that's just easy. Go to make sure it's comprehensive, and you're aligning it off the observation. If I see this, and I'm going to try to confirm it and support it with the data here. So every observation that you saw, you should have also had a corresponding data source to help you unpack what those observations were related to that concern or that issue. The key informant serves as an important role too. The key informant needs to be aligned with the observation and the data. So the observations are just one layer of information gathering for your assessment. The statistical data, or those big large data sets, or those secondary data sources, are what you're using and pulling in to confirm the observations that you're making. After that, if there are any gaps or confirmations that you need on what it is you saw in terms of problems, issues, community composition, makeup, now your key informant should be able to fill in the holes here. And so if you are able to get some statistics on homelessness, or some statistics on substance use, or statistics on mental health in a given community. Now you may want to find a key informant that can provide more rich narrative information that you can't get in the data and the numbers alone. And so I should see an alignment with the observations. I should see alignment in the data, and there should be alignment with the key informant to those issues. And so now your key informant, if you're utilizing, if you identify crime, and then you're able to pull up some statistics on crime in the area, maybe at that point, your key informant should be a police officer who can speak toward crime and have the expertise to talk about crime. If it's mental health, challenges. You see a lot of mental health facilities in the neighborhood, or opioid or substance use, right? Then you may try to gather in statistical information about substance use in that community, or mental health challenges in the community. But then your key informant may either be a mental health counselor, a therapist, or a substance use counselor or therapist to further give you more rich information. So I want to see alignment. We're just not picking data out the air and that what's convenient to complete a presentation. The skill of assessment is working with a client or a client system with which a community is, seeing what you observe from that client systems, letting what you observe inform the type of screens or assessments or data that you're going to go to understand more of what it is you're observing. And then it's to go even deeper to gather some more concrete information and to enhance your assessment. And now that key informant is serving that role. And so it should be very clear in your presentation why the key informant is being used and how that key informant is plugging, adding more rich data to what it is you observed in your data set information, your statistical information. Your analysis is tying it all together. Now it's the synthesis and alignment of your observation, your data, your informant. Now you are giving me a summary, and now there's a full story here with all the data from your assessment, right? And so from there, your assessment is comprehensive, it's complete. Now that your assessment is complete, you should have an idea of what intervention is going to look like. I know what the problems are, I know what the needs are, I know what the strengths are. Another piece of feedback I want to give you, a lot about the problems. I want to see equal strengths with problems. And we don't do that enough as social workers, but that is important. So if you give me 5 problems with the individual client or a client system, which a community is, I want to see 5 strengths or as many strengths as we can. We focus a lot on problems, which is the nature of social work and trying to help problems. But oftentimes we're using the strength of that client or that client systems to help solve the problem. So we need to be as aware, as knowledgeable about the strengths and the resources, because we're going to use and build off the strengths and the resources of the community or the client to help solve the problem, help fix the needs. So I want to hear more rich application of strengths moving forward as you move along in this program. They're important and we utilize them. They're one of the tools that we use to help our clients, their strengths and their resources. So I need that to be very content heavy in your presentations and your conceptualizations when you're doing assessments with your clients. And so now we're to the giving back piece. So once you have a very clear analysis that really synthesizes, summarizes the key resources, strengths, and key strengths, resources, and needs of the community, and how each of those prior pieces fit in that analysis. Now we're looking at giving back. Similar, the giving back needs to be aligned with the rest of your assessment. Okay, you don't want to say somebody has a substance abuse issue and you sent them to a domestic violence and you sent them to a domestic violence shelter. If domestic violence wasn't listed as the problem, why are you sending them to a domestic violence shelter? So the giving back should look very, very consistent with the needs and the resources. So for instance, you may say, well, I saw that there were some social service agencies that help with substance use. So I want to, and the identifying problem that I had was substance use, and I supported that problem with my observations, with the data, and with my key informant. And so now my giving back may be at a substance abuse facility. Okay, and this is how I think I can impact. But again, the giving back should align with the needs, right? If it's substance use, how do you help support substance use in that community? Is it a harm reduction program, a needle exchange? You volunteer for that? Do you um, contribute supplies for needle exchange so that substance users are safe and they're not passing along communicable diseases? If homelessness is a concern, and you were able to support that with the data source, and you're able to support that with your key informant, and you want to now give back to a homeless shelter, right? Again, that those are great. It's aligned because it's a homeless shelter, but think about what are the concerns that you had. Are you going to donate masks in the midst of COVID? Are you going to donate blankets because you want to make sure that they're safe as the weather is getting cold, et cetera, et cetera? And so when you're thinking about giving back, it's in essence your intervention to help support the problem. And so it should be aligned directly to the data. And so again, when you're thinking about assessments and presentation and doing your presentations, you want to make sure that you're aligning key things. Another key piece of feedback that I wanted to provide for you, only one student cited the required textbook. And it was mentioned prior to the start of the assignment that we had a chapter that covered community assessment. I also tried to drill in throughout the course that I'm measuring your understanding of key concepts. In any assignment that you're given, whether it's a PowerPoint assignment or written assignment, all assignments are opportunities for you to demonstrate content that you are learning in the course. With that being said, you needed to make sure you said to me, hey, Dr. Cross, I know what a community assessment is. Kirstashman and Hall talks about observations in community assessments as being key because observations can help generalist social work practice in this way. When you're thinking about data sources, Kirstashman and Hall identify key data sources in rich assessments. Reputable data sources identified in the course in the textbook or Kirstashman Hall includes this, that, and the other. I should have seen where the textbook and content that you're learning in the course showed itself in every part of that presentation. Okay, what skills are you using as a generalist social work practice? Maybe that should have shown itself in every of those areas. The skills of observation, skills of interviewing if you utilize them. That may have also could have shown itself in your interview with the key informant. We talked about social individual skills in social work of interviewing. We talked about that earlier in the course. That might have found its way in your interview with your key informant. Okay. Again, every assignment that you are given in this program is measuring your understanding of the required reading and topics that were covered. You use every opportunity that you are given to show your professor that you understand the concepts that you're learning in the course. And not only do you know that, but you understand them and you can apply it and you can apply it proficiently. I'm going to say it again, only one student identified the course textbook. Now, there were some students that used references and cited sources, but again, I'm not measuring your understanding of other sources. I'm measuring your understanding of the textbook. Now, in the way that we set up the assignment, it is a community assessment as identified with the observations and data sources, but you just setting up your paper to be accurate of a community assessment is not showing me you understand a community assessment and the key elements of it from the required textbook. That one was a huge one, okay? Again, I did not penalize students. One, because it's very hard to do a community assessment and it's hard to redo it. If that was a paper, I would have sent that back and said, you didn't quote you didn't apply or integrate the content of the course in this paper. Redo it and integrate the content from the course. I did not do it because of the complexity of a presentation. I did not remove any points for that. But just to be very clear, if you do not do it for every assignment, it does not count. There's nothing for me to measure in terms of your understanding of course content, okay? But again, this assignment was twofold. It was measuring what you know, but it's also teaching you how to apply skills learned, actually apply it in your assessment piece. So you're actually doing an assessment, but it's also helping you with presentation and communication skills. So it had other components of it too. And that one was big for me. The other thing, everyone tend to, really, I like their verbal skills, how they presented. They were clear, the recordings were clear. Um, just think about as you're bringing your community alive to make sure that your enthusiasm for your presentation, or your work or your client population shows itself. Other housekeeping things I think is important. Follow the instructions specifically and clearly. Now, some students may have problems with technology, but what I really saw was students uploaded um, the assignment in formats that were not recommended according to the instructions. This is big for me. And the reason why this is big is that I know that when you go work in the field where you as field interns, when you go to work as a professional social worker, a master's level social worker, it's understood that you can follow directions. That's why you have a master's degree. You couldn't have got that master's degree if you don't know how to understand a set of instruction and apply it proficiently. That's what a master's degree or graduate level program teaches you. And so what I noticed is when I went into grade, quite a few students didn't use the correct format. Now, this isn't to make your life hard or to give you something, make it more challenging. I can't grade it. And so the directions were in place for a reason. And some of you found that to be the case when they tried to upload a large video. Some of it took 45 minutes, an hour. That's what happens when you try to upload a video that large. That's why the shareable link is required. Most students do not have a problem with the shareable link. A large percentage of students have um, problems uploading a video. Video takes up too much storage space in Blackboard. Many people will get an error message. And so to bypass that, a shareable link is needed. If For me, downloads, if the uploads are large and takes a long time, the downloads for me to grade it is long. I can't take an hour downloading a video just to watch it for another 20 minutes for 20 students. Think about how long it would literally take me 24 hours to do that. The other thing is I'm a little leery of download because sometimes when you download stuff, you can get viruses on your computer. My computer can crash. And even if I can download one movie, it'll start asking me to delete stuff out of my computer to make space for larger movies. So there's a reason why instructions are in place to guide you. It's to help you not have those kind of problems with your uploads or have problems. For me with my download, I can get in and grade it and turn over your grades more quickly. So that's a big one. Whenever a professor, whatever your field supervisor, whenever your soon to be real supervisor or boss in your job gives you a set of instruction, you must follow them concisely. It speaks to competence in social work practice. And so again, I'm going to repeat, one other issue is making sure you know how to follow instructions. If for some reason you have problems and you can't follow the instruction, the expectation is for you to find the answer or reach out to somebody who can. Not to not follow the instructions and still upload the link in a way that wasn't recommended and according to the assignment. Now I know there's plenty of reasons why students might have not done it that way, but I just want to give you something to think about. Again, these are skills that I am trying to teach you so that you can be better professionals, better field students as well. I hope that makes sense. I hope this feedback was helpful to you as you move forward in the course, and it will make you a better student. So again, following instructions, having engaging, interactive presentations, aligning every section of your assignment. You're not writing in silos, right? Everything that you're writing should be connected and build off of each other as you move along in an assignment. And the same holds true for the presentation. The last thing I probably want to say is there were areas that were missing. And not many, but a few students missed key areas of the assignment. That is, the assignment had a community, it had an observation, it had a data and analysis section, it had a key informant section, and it had a key giving back section. And students missed some of those sections, at least one of those sections, and that could have been easily avoided. Okay, that is a huge section that you're needed to get points on, so you couldn't miss it. There was also an opportunity for students to submit community assessment draft. Only a few students did that. Again, if you didn't need to do it and you did fine on the community assessment, great. But for those who missed sections of of the presentation. Perhaps if you'd uploaded your draft, I would have saw that you missed it and I could have gave you feedback on that. Don't forget to include this assessment. I don't see it in the draft, and it needs to be a section or a heading that's in your PowerPoint presentation. So again, I hope that feedback helps you as you move forward through the program. I assure you, you're going to have more presentations, and I want to make sure that you're ready. You bring your best self to your presentation, and that the skills that you learned in that assessment, you take it with you in the field, and hopefully as you're in your career as professional generalist social work practitioners. Again, that'll conclude this video of your assignment feedback. Please tune in next week. I will be uploading an course overview video and final farewells. Take care.